Welcome to AI for Good, the leading, action-oriented, global and inclusive United Nations platform on AI. Organized by the International Telecommunication Union, the United Nations Agency for Digital Technologies, in partnership with 50+ UN sister organizations and co-convened with Switzerland. The goal of AI for Good is to unlock AI's potential to serve humanity. In today's AI for Good event, we are counting on you to use the live video wall feature to ask questions and post comments to help create an engaging discussion. We encourage you to stay until the end to chat, connect, ask questions, and network with our distinguished facilitators and world-class AI experts in the neural network. It is now time to kick off the session and welcome our first speaker. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. I am Erika Martins, and I'm honored to moderate this year's session on Shaping Tomorrow's Plate, Personalized Food with AI. Last year at UN, we opened the conversation by asking, what role should AI play in our food system? This year we go deeper into personalization. And how can AI help us to move beyond one size fits all towards something that is truly connects with our health, our culture, and our planet? AI is moving fast, and food is too important to be left behind. The choices we make around food touch not only our well-being, but also our society and the environment. This is why today we have brought together leaders from science, gastronomy, and policy, and innovation to explore how AI can shape a more personal, fair, and sustainable food future. I'm really happy to introduce Raquel Martin Rodriguez. She's transforming the gastronomy in a global innovation force. Raquel is a nutritionist specialized in sport nutrition and gastronomic science, with over a decade of experience across marketing and R&D at companies such as Unilever Netherlands. Today, she's leading the global partnership and strategy at the Basque Culinary Center's gastronomy open ecosystem, connecting education and entrepreneurship and innovation. The floor is yours, Raquel, to start off our session today.
Great, thank you very much, Erika, and welcome everyone. I'm gonna share my screen. Give me a second. Yeah, there we go. Cool, so thank you very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. Getting hands-on into the topic, let me start with a little bit of a step back. In 2015, I was just graduating from my bachelor in nutrition and health. And back then, personalized nutrition was pretty much everything about just doing a personalized menu and a diet. And perhaps the maximum level of it was the FODMAP diet or food products that were tailor-made to food allergies or food intolerances. Things like metabolomics or nutrigenomics were in very, very early days. Fast forward to 2025, the picture is completely different, right? Like now we can see that metabolomics, nutrigenomics are coming together. We are able to give truly personalized menus with real data and day-to-day data on what's happening in your day-to-day. So a lot of things have changed, and I think this vision of the intersection in between disciplines is what has brought us today here. I want to also bring up a little bit of our understanding of key levers of the evolution on personalized nutrition, which eventually ended up as well in the products that we provide. And a couple of key levers on that is advances in genomics and microbiome. So now these disciplines come together and we are able to do tailor-made dietary recommendations. Artificial intelligence and machine learning has helped us a lot to digest long databases, find the similar patterns, and be able to personalize menus and dietary plans. What about technologies and biosensors on really having real-time, day-to-day data is pulling us in a different journey. And of course, the innovation coming out of it with the startups blooming like Zoe, Eat Love, Insight Tracker, perhaps more from the, let's say, menu planning and integration with health data. But there are others that have a more kind of culinary angle, like ChatGPT, or very much focused on product development, like Notco. And all of these developments, at least for me, means something important, which is the power of the intersection. And that's also our vision why projects like Gastronomy Open Ecosystem comes in. Because our take in gastronomy is gastronomy 360, so really considering the whole value chain and the intersection of the disciplines that goes along. So a purposeful and a delicious future can only be achieved if we are able to find synergies across different talent and across different disciplines, which means, and I think that's a great example of how personalized food and personalized nutrition with AI has come together. No, different disciplines bringing all together a different angle to be able to provide or give a bigger impact. So these integrations have taken us to where we are today with personalized menus, with personalized food products, all of it adapted to your nutritional needs and always with health data around that. So very quickly, our take from GOE when it comes to personalized nutrition in our day-to-day activities is that from the angle of training, we are developing a specific master program in food as medicine and also in gastrotech. So now they are separated, but they are interlinked. That's why they are all in the same place. We also have a lot of projects going on from the field of innovation where the team of health, digitalization, and culinary development are coming together. So, for example, designing beverages range that include digital devices since day one, or a lot of predictive tools in the hospitality sector as to become better in productivity and automatization of the specific tasks. But this is also connected as well with the third leg, which is entrepreneurship. So we collaborate with the startups that are working on this field, and along with them, we learn and we also develop things together. And last but not least, an element which I think this webinar is a great example of is the part of programming. So really giving open conferences for the people so that they can understand the science, they can understand what AI, personalized nutrition, and innovation means for them day to day, making it very digestible so that people can understand. So just to not take much more time from you, I would like to close this session with a small our take from Gastronomy Open Ecosystem on personalized food and AI, because if I put myself the hat of what the students are seeing or our approach to the students, there is a clear evolution of the workforce that AI is enabling. Not to see it as a way to be scared of or think that someone is going to replace me, rather embrace the tools so that you can be more productive in the workplace, so that you can automatize a lot of the operations in the day-to-day of a restaurant. AI is also a very important creative tool. AI can bring us fast forward or really future thinking approaches that you can bring back to earth and see how is possible, and eventually perhaps get there. Data feed more data, being able to digest huge databases, but also be more accurate on the outputs of it and really understanding the right patterns across that data. Now even thinking about sustainability data coming in. Systemic approaches, I think this is very clear, no? Integrating metabolomics with nutrigenomics, health, culinary insights, the biosensors. So this part of really celebrating intersections, which is pretty much our spirit and vision in GOE. Faster and more precise product development. I think Notco, that startup, is a great example of it. And one key element for us is when it comes to deliciousness, looking at tools like AI and personalization to make sure that whatever we are putting out there tastes great. And if it doesn't taste great, we are not doing a good job over here, because that's what eventually food and gastronomy is all about. And I just want to close with a kind of a small reflection when it comes to cultural relevancy, because when we talk about food or gastronomy, the cultural element, who we are, where we are coming from, is key. And perhaps AI is not as human-centric as food is. So I'm going to leave that as an open question for us to reflect on, to what extent we can use AI as a way to personalize food and still keeping the cultural relevancy on it. So with that, I'm going to leave it here for us to reflect as we go in the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raquel. I'm so excited for the Geo to open, and let's dive further into the questions. So I'm really happy to present our next speaker. He made history as one of the first chefs to teach AI how to cook. James is a two-time champion of the Food Network Chopped, co-author of the award-winning Flavor Matrix, and the creative force behind the IBM's Chef Watson, one of the first major projects to combine AI with gastronomy. He has led research at the Institute of Culinary Education and is now the co-founder of Culin AI, where he brings AI to power personalization and flavor science directly into the kitchen. James, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Erica, and Raquel, thank you. That was wonderful. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, how we look at putting how we're looking at putting some of those things in practice. But I think everyone needs to stop right now and just write down on the side, deliciousness. Erica used that word in her presentation. I absolutely love that word. I don't think we use that word enough. It's so amazing. Deliciousness is what we should all be striving for in every day, and that's certainly what we are. And what I want to talk about a little bit in my journey and in my work now with developing Culinary AI. But to go back a little bit, Thursday, February 28th, 2013 was the first public announcement of Chef Watson. I was a chef working in New York City, leading research at the Institute of Culinary Education. Had been in fine dining previous to that. We're talking about 12 years ago now, over 12 years ago. I had no idea what AI was, and really didn't realize we were on the first steps of creating generative AI for recipes. But back 12 years ago, when I was fortunate enough to link up with the team at IBM, Dr. Lav Varshney and Florian Pinnell, who were leading this just kind of thought experiment with IBM that became Chef Watson, and we took it around the world into South by Southwest. And it was through that project. I entered it kind of like I was going into another competition, like I've done on TV so many times, and like I was going into the kitchen to battle the computer and come out the winner, and not realizing that really the goal and the best outcome was the collaboration with the computer and actually learning from it. And that's really what we did with working with Chef Watson. We began to understand flavor on a different level, on the molecular level, and that's really that first step in personalization. And there's so much power in that. So from that point on, I really began to think about flavor differently. And it's very complex. I have a bachelor's of science in nutrition dietetics, so a decent background in chemistry. So understanding some of this was okay for me, but most chefs don't understand this, and that was the motivation for me to write the book The Flavor Matrix, which has just been incredible, which explains flavor on that molecular level, how our aromatic compounds work work with one another to create flavors in food. And I think as I said, once you start to understand flavor like that, that's where personalization begins. So with Culin AI, we're looking at how we take that deep knowledge of flavor through the personalization lens and bring it to nutrition, because we are facing a global health crisis right now. These stats are pretty specific to the U.S., but 80%, 86% of healthcare costs worldwide, but certainly in the U.S. are driven by diet-related disease that is preventable if we have the right diets. People who try to go onto diets, 92% fail within a few months because they feel generic, they're not personal to them, and they're not joyless. And dietitians, we have one dietitian for every 3,700 people, which is a huge problem. when we look at this. And I think one of the great promises of AI, and you're even on is, one who said this in last year's panel, one of the great powers of AI is to scale expertise. And so when we look at a disparity like one dietitian for 3,000 and 700 people, that need to scale expertise becomes exponential. And that's really, what we're looking to do with Colon AI. In all of this personalization in fixing diet-related disease, personalization is the missing piece, because health isn't one size fits all, and nor is taste. For people to connect with food flatly, right? And without the knowledge, without that expertise of medical nutrition and culinary or cultural relevance, there it is. This doesn't stick, and nutritional needs, and cultural flavor are just so important. So that's how we look at scaling the expertise through Culin AI, where we have flavor personalization, actually getting to know and understand both culturally flavors that people are used to and enjoy, and then just what their flavor preferences are through some machine learning. We begin to develop that algorithm of, just as we do with movies and music, you start to learn what you like and suggest more of it. But so we have three really buckets of expertise that get scaled to the individual. So with medical precision, we've integrated ICD-10 codes and nutritional expertise, and then real life execution. That chef in your ear who can advise and tell you, hey, this is how you do this a little bit quicker. These are the things you need to know. Hey, you only have 15 minutes. Here's what we should make today. If you've got a little more time, here's how we can plan it out for the rest of the week to keep you on track, to keep you excited about the food that you're eating that's also going to serve your health. Looking at that, in practice, we have, a case study of two patients. One is a CKD patient. US, they enjoy Mediterranean inspired food. So you can see we're presenting two different lentil dishes. But here, with the CKD patient, it's critical that they control their sodium and potassium, and still take in moderate protein. So we're loading it up with herbs and citrus instead of salt to bring flavor and joy to the food. Taking them through the steps of cooking, where the vegetables are leached to remove potassium before they're cooked into the dish, and then moderating protein, lentils, doing that, and then olive oil to bring a little richness and happiness. And then here a diabetes patient who's on a GLP-1, so a lot of controls, and depending where they are in titration at this point, we can adjust portion and to help control that satiety. But balance carbs and proteins, finding ways to sneak in a little bit more protein, but also, staying within that South Asian diet that they are, accustomed to, and will actually come back to and want to stick with. So two patients, two conditions, two cuisines, but all through the same platform. And that's, what we're trying to deliver. And, that to me is the great promise of AI. Personalization, precision, and deliciousness. I should have been listening to my own advice and finish that off with deliciousness right there. So that's how that's kind of how we look at and how we're approaching this scaling of expertise and personalizing all of those arenas of expertise through a singular platform, to deliver nutrition, health, and deliciousness.
Love it. You made it. The deliciousness. Amazing. So for our next speaker, she's a pioneer in science of nutrition at the molecular level. Julia is a faculty member at Harvard Medical School and affiliated at the Northwestern University Network Science Institute. A physicist by training, she leads the Food Dome project, mapping the hidden chemistry of food and its links to health. Through her work, she's redefined how science and AI can unlock the health potential on what's in our plate. Julia, I'm really happy to give the floor over to you. It looks like we lost Julia. Ah, no, she's back. Julia, can you hear us? Yes. I think you.
Hello. Hello. Sorry, something crashed, and but I'm back. Okay, so fill the gaps. Okay, so let me share my presentation. Give me a second. Well, okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Giulia Manichetti, and I'm a junior faculty at Harvard Medical School and a faculty member at the Network Science Institute. Give me a second. There you go. So, sorry, I'm very sorry for this issues with my signal. So let's go back to the presentation. So you can learn a little bit about me. Probably Erica has already introduced me, so I'll try to go quickly through this slide. And again, I've been leading a project that is called Foodom, and Foodom aims to track the full chemical complexity of the food that we consume and understand its mechanistic impact on our health. But I also want to stress that basically the project has spread all over the different layers of the food systems, reaching also public health intervention driven by AI. So a little bit about me. I am a physicist by training, and before leading this group, I studied basically statistical physics and computational physics, and I specialize in network science. So what is network science? Is the science that by studying how elements, molecules, people, let's say, so different type of elements according to the discipline you're looking at, according to how these elements in a system interact, is able to predict the emergent properties and overall behavior of that system. So let's move forward. There you go. And most importantly, I don't do this alone. There are many people working with me. If you look at this slide, basically, I am just listing here the junior researchers that work with me every day, and they span all domains orbiting around human nutrition, from basically computer science to chemistry and medicine. And I think this gives you the idea that how multidisciplinarity is necessary to study the food systems, which is something beautiful, but also something very challenging in terms of communication and translation. A key word in the Foodom project is, when we try to describe the Foodom project to general audience, is complexity. And let me give you a few examples of complexity in action. So let's start basically with the nutrition dark matter, or I like to call it like the NDM. So the NDM refers to the vast number of chemical compounds in food. They're largely tracked by epidemiological studies and traditional food composition databases. So the NDM challenges basically the reductionist view of food as merely a source of fuel, so calories, right? Or let's say essential nutrients, essential to whom? Humans, right? And instead, basically, it frames food and nutrition as a complex biochemical system, one that mirrors basically the genomic and metabolomic complexity of the plants and animals that we consume, all of which were basically once living organism. So this perspective opens entirely new research frontiers. Basically, understanding nutrition becomes a question of human-environment coevolution, where food molecules act as biochemical signals, and our bodies have to interpret them, respond to them, and adapt around them. So much of our AI projects focus on discovering these molecules and understanding what they do to our body and to our microbes. And this is really where personalization could happen, but it is important to say that we're still far from a true molecular personalization at scale. So you saw some hints of personalization. There are hints related to just specific dimension of the molecular world. So another example that you can hear here is hyperpalatability. So what is hyperpalatability? Well, it is one of the proposed mechanisms behind the link between ultra-processed foods and adverse health outcomes. These foods are often energy dense and rich in salt, sugar, and fats. These are sensory characteristics believed to override satiety signals and promote excess intakes. However, and here the complexity comes, hyperpalatability is not simply a function of elevated levels of fat, sugar, and salt, and it cannot be fully captured by statistical models, and so simple models in general that combine these nutrients linearly. In a very similar way, we can talk also about the sensory effects of recipes. So hyperpalatability involves physical transformation and the chemical, basically of the chemical reorganization of all nutrients and bioactive compounds that initially are part of whole foods, and then basically somehow change the way in which we digest our food, we absorb our food, and overall satiety. So when we talk about ultra-processed food, well, they often exhibit textures that promote, let's say, rapid consumption, such as, for example, crunchiness and softness, and low chew resistance and melt in the mouth consistency. So these are these characteristics, these features somehow alter the original food matrix, something we heard also from the other speakers, that may compromise nutrient bioavailability, postpartum glycemic responses. This is one of the feature track for personalized response, and satiety levels. So, and part of our work, for example, focuses on capturing these properties, modeling these properties of foods through AI models. So let me give you examples. And for the first part, so the NDM, leveraging a chemical language model, we can represent all molecules in our library, that is about 140,000 chemicals, and explore the similarities between NDM molecules and drugs, known drugs in drug bank, showing that basically these molecules, rather than acting as standard macro and micronutrients that currently are driving our personalized study of nutrition, well, they actually are much more closer to drugs, okay? So each dot in this plot represents a molecule. For instance, rosmarinic acid that you see here, that is a polyphenol known as an antiplatelet agent, sits relatively close to another antiplatelet agent, this time synthetic, that is clopidogrel. And with completely different types of data, not as extensive from a molecular point of view, but mainly leveraging information that we can find on food packaging data, we can work with multi-model AI to model food processing, for example, and hyperpalatability. And so in summary, when I think about AI for the food system, I see three main interconnected domains. So the first one in green that you see here is where AI has exploded in the past years, borrowing from other tech fields involving food recognition and logging, which leads to basically personalized recommendation, especially for meal planning and recipe planning, given the huge amount of data on recipe worldwide. The second bucket in orange that you can see here revolves around the characterization of the food environment we live in and the supply chain responsible for it. So data here is less extensive, less open source compared to the first bucket. And finally, we have the most challenging one in teal, but I would say essential to truly understand the role of nutrition in human health and to bring nutrition to speak the language of the other omics, such as genomics, for example. So to precisely match the personalized recommendation, there you go. Sorry. Okay. So if we really want to precisely match the personalized recommendation that we have seen in the green bucket with human biology and not just a few traits, beyond basically the mapping on the nutrition dark matter, we have to address a larger unknown, that is, how does metabolism, both human and microbial, modify, amplify, or suppress the activity of all these compounds? So understanding this transformation is crucial. Two people may consume the same food, but experience different molecular exposure depending on their microbiome, enzyme expression, and even co-consume meals. So there is also another important dimension that we can consider. So without getting to the level that I just discussed of fine-tuning on personal biology, we could improve broader population health by implementing changes in the food environments, therefore by using their basically the power of public health and optimize the results with tailored nudges on personal devices when available to maximize compliance. And so that's all for me, and thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry for the technical issues.
Thank you so much, Julia. So fascinating to see the development of your project from last year. And now I would like to present our next speaker. He's at the forefront of the European AI policy and innovation as the head of Unit for AI for Societal Good at the European AI Office. Martin has steered innovative projects using AI for innovation and countless international collaborations. With decades of experience as governments and technology policy, Martin is shaping how AI can serve societal and planetary responsibility. Martin, I would like to invite you to share your screen. Can you hear me, Martin?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just going to do the old screen sharing now. If you just give me 1 second. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
The floor is yours.
Hold on. Okay. So do this. Can you see okay? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Paulina, can we see? I actually
1 second. Excuse me. Yeah, you should hopefully be seeing. I'm just going to share my screen. 1 second. Second attempt. Okay, window. Okay. Okay, I hope you can see it okay. Please shout if you can.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. I can't see you, unfortunately, because I don't have enough screens today. So I'm Martin Bailey, and I'm in the European AI Office. And as Erica was introducing, I work in the part of AI for societal good. I'm not going to give you a whole presentation on the AI Office. But the AI Office sits in part of the European Commission DG Connect. We have basically three areas or three kind of major tasks. One is that we are in charge of regulating, or that's right, ensuring the safety of AI. And we do this through this horizontal piece of legislation, the AI Act, the European AI Act. And we have various sub legislation such as the GPI code, General Purpose AI Code. We also have a part that deals with research and innovation in AI, and a part that deals with more broadly with innovation for societal good. This is what I do, and also in the context of international fora. So that just gives you a brief overview. So I'm in this part of the international fora and AI for societal good. You're probably unfamiliar or familiar, I don't know, with the AI Act, but basically the AI Act regulates AI according to the level of risk. So it applies to all types of AI, irrespective of the sector. So it's based on risk, as it's clearly said here. I'm not going to go into too much detail. So looking, and I'm obviously coming from a European, slightly regulatory perspective here, how AI, how food and advances in AI and food and the marriage of the two can be looked at from our perspective. One is that, well, under the AI Act, we've got this classification of risk, as I just explained, ensuring rights and safety. Importantly, because we're talking about inclusivity and perhaps a subsect of that, deliciousness or delectability, whatever word we want to use. And of course, we need to use the right data sets, perception, and of course, to remove biases, we need wider data sets and human oversight. So inclusivity is kind of, excuse the pun, hard baked into our legislation. And then the regulations that we set up are there also to support startups and experimentation, so that people, that all innovators and entrepreneurs and companies know the rules of the road, and that gives some predictability. With a focus on AI for societal good, specifically what we do, we develop policy, but we also develop AI solutions. And these solutions, we provide them for free. We make a whole range of models. We've been working on models for disaster relief, floods, for forest fires, for reconstruction. We're also developing models in health and cancer, diagnosis, energy grids. And one of the areas we're slowly moving on to as well is development deployment in Africa. So for countries that don't perhaps have the same technological advances as we do, and I will be talking a little bit about that. But basically, what we do is we design the policy, we see what the needs are within house. We develop the models, and then we deploy, or we offer up the models within Europe for free, the open source models, or to our international partners. So as I explained, this is the three-stage process. We develop the AI models, we deploy the AI models, and then we diffuse the AI models. One of our other specializations within the unit in our AI work is digital twins, local digital twins. We're also looking at regional digital twins. And this we use across a whole range of use cases. But in the context of food and food development and targeting and personalization, local digital twins is a fantastic way of simulating not just objects and things like cities or parts of cities, but also systems and processes. And so we use the whole of the AI. We use the AI chain. We use AI in the chain from the data, the training, right until the end of the process. If you look at it with building information management, that's a very close example of how we use local digital twins to develop processes. You can imagine that being applied for the modeling of food processes and food processing, not for processed food. So I've said digital twins in food systems. We also we're going to support more using digital twins for precision farming, both in Europe and outside Europe. And of course, this is very important for those countries that are subject to, or areas or regions which are subject to very tough environmental conditions, which, by the way, also includes Europe. As you may or may not have heard, there's been severe flooding in Piemonte in these last days in Italy. So this affects all geographies, but of course it does affect hugely the food chain. And we also use digital twins for predicting weather patterns. So it's all part of the cycle that we work on. I mentioned a few seconds ago our future work on Africa. So we have generative AI project for Africa that we're going to be starting at the beginning of next year. And the main aims of this is to it's basically kind of a holistic approach where we're looking at using AI to empower societies, changing societies, and particular focus areas. If you see agriculture and healthcare, as well as obviously education infrastructure, which is all part of it, and local innovation systems. So just bearing in mind our work, we develop the stuff, we develop the systems, we develop the models in Europe. But this is why we're called AI for Societal Good as a unit. We're trying to bring the benefits of AI and into all sorts of areas. I've mentioned here now agriculture and health, but to broaden and disseminate to the countries most in need. And I stress these are open source models, not proprietary, so they're easily shared and can be tailored locally. That's all I'm going to say for the moment. So I'm ready to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. I hope you can see me now. So for the last speaker, he's bridging science and cuisine to imagine the future of labor. Johnny holds a PhD in material science from Oxford. He works with world-class chefs and restaurants. He's the co-founder of Win-Win Food Labs, the creator of the world's first cocoa-free chocolate. Co-founder of Mold Magazine, which is a global platform on food and design. And he is recognized as a food pioneer in food sustainability and now serves as the CEO of the Italian deep tech startup Hype Sound. Johnny, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Erica. Could you just let me know, can you see the slide there?
Yeah, we see them.
And they're moving as well, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me. So I guess, sometimes I work in the detail, so as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, but today, given that, the other speakers have gone into lots of rich detail, I get the opportunity to sort of give a bit of a history lesson and, reflect in a perhaps more philosophical way about some of these food and AI questions, solutions that we're collectively looking at, which is a very exciting thing. So first, a little bit of a history lesson to sort of contextualize where this AI revolution fits into the history of food and agriculture. And so, we had this agrarian revolution, which was this first sort of large scale planetary intervention, really, that human beings engaged in, where we terraformed the planet and it let us settle in communities. And then we, many years later, had a sort of industrial revolution, followed relatively quickly speaking with a sort of digital revolution. And these industrial and digital revolutions have let us scale. So we can now feed basically 8 billion people on the planet, give or take. Although, about 800 million humans right now are still chronically undernourished. So we have a distribution problem. And we also have a waste problem. About 30 to 40% of all the edible biomass produced doesn't get eaten. But, these tools in each of these revolutions that I've mentioned, they were cutting edge for the time. And at each point, they sort of reflected what humans value most, which essentially are normally two things. It's survival and control. And each essentially was an extension of ourselves, of humans, and an interface between humans and the world around us. And so, just like these Neolithic tools, whether it's sort of a sickle or some stone tools or a primitive knife, I want people to leave the session today thinking that actually AI is simply an extension of this long history of these various tools. The other thing, if I was a branding and marketing agency, I would say, and I was asked to sort of rebrand AI, the thing I would say is the phrase is sort of poor. This word artificial, typically in the context of food, is not it's not a good thing. We appeal to nature. We like natural things. we tend not to like artificial things. We think of them as being, cheaper or poorer or, less nutritious. But actually, much of the food that we know now and love is artificial. God did not create, cauliflower. God did not create broccoli. He created, the common wild mustard and let human beings do the rest. And we artificially selected for different traits. We selected for leaves and we ended up with kale. We selected for flower buds and we ended up with cauliflower. And we did this process of artificial selection over, hundreds and hundreds of years. And so now much of the food that we know and love is a product of having its DNA tweaked, adjusted artificially by the intervention of humans. The same things can be said of bread. Wheat was a primitive grass that was domesticated. We ferment it with yeasts that have been domesticated, cheese, etc. So what we call natural is in truth, centuries of human ingenuity and human technology made edible. And so again, I just want to contextualize AI being an extension of this, grand tradition of humanity, basically playing with our food and making it do more of the things that we want it to do. So, I think science, part of my work involves science communication, and sometimes science and technology can be a bit elitist and alienating. So, in the news today, we read a lot about, agentic AI or some of these more complex terms. And what I wanted to do is just break down into more sort of qualitative, relatable brackets or buckets, what AI can and is doing for us in food today. So, the first of those is basically making the invisible visible. The great thing about AI is you can take lots of hidden trends in billions of data points and reveal those trends in a useful way. So companies like Tastewise in the bottom right are crunching, billions of data points about consumer preferences and turning them or helping turn those insights into new products that consumers will want to eat. And that means that companies can launch products and be more confident that they won't be flops and therefore reduce waste. Similarly, when we think about personalized nutrition, we can crunch all of these data points from biomarkers in the body, and we can end up with these highly personalized diets and dietary nutritional solutions. The second sort of qualitative bucket is the idea of design. Like I said, we've been designing our food, whether it's bread or broccoli, for hundreds, thousands of years. And AI gives us this ability to design in really new, powerful ways. So whether you agree with it or not, and it's probably, we could talk for hours about this, but genetic modification using contemporary biological tools, again, very similar to how we ended up with broccoli and wheat, but using things like CRISPR, etc. AI gives us the ability to do these sorts of modifications and selective breeding unbelievably quickly. So we're talking, months or years versus, hundreds of years. And obviously what this will allow us to do is create potentially ingredients that are, don't have certain allergens in them for people that have, peanut allergies or wheat allergies. And we might be able to create crops that have certain specific personalized nutrient profiles or crops that grow in specific personalized microclimates, The third bucket is this idea of coordination. AI can help us optimize these flows of food around the world and thereby reduce waste. Like I said, we grow enough food to feed the planet, but we have a distribution problem. And it means out of 8-ish billion people, 800 million are chronically undernourished. And that's, a huge, profound tragedy. So AI can help us ease some of those logistics, figure out what is in season, where it needs to get to. Are there any impediments of, shipping this truck or ship from here to here and getting this food to other people? And of course, a lot of the conversation has been focused on, the real cutting edge of technology. Can I have a improved personalized diet? But actually, personalized nutrition for close to 1 billion people in the world just means, can I eat and what am I going to eat? So even those very simple questions, which we, have to solve as a priority, getting food to people who are hungry, can be eased using AI. And then the final bucket is, reimagining how we grow, tools for sort of helping farmers produce the food that we grow. I'll just spend a couple of minutes, if I can, just talking about the ethics of AI and food. AI is great at optimizing things, but if you have a system that is already broken, like the global food system, you end up potentially just optimizing a broken system, making it worse, or basically making it better at being worse for many of the people involved. And in the mass media, there's a lot of talk about AI going rogue and doing what it wants. And I would suggest that actually the greatest danger is that we let AI do exactly what we want it to do, which is basically making things faster and cheaper without ever pausing to ask, should we be doing this? What we feed the machine is also important. Smallholder farmers produce something like a third of the world's food, often women of color in the Southern Hemisphere. And we have to make sure that those perspectives are incorporated into these AI models. AIs are not neutral. They have biases that are included in the data set. So we have to make sure that we're not including those and work hard that we therefore avoid entrenching inequalities, making sure that certain underrepresented ingredients, food cultures don't just disappear because, sub-Saharan West African ingredients are not documented as well on the internet, and therefore there is a risk of them getting lost. And similarly, the idea that we don't just reduce farmers and farm workers to data sources and data points. And the same goes, of course, for the non-human agents in food systems, pollinators, microbes, etc. Finally, very quickly, AI is very resource hungry. People are building these hyperscale data centers in places close to water to cool them, but some of those places are places where water resources are very scarce. So we have to just make sure we're not building smarter forms of unsustainability and inequity. So I'll just finish off by saying that AI is already shaping and personalizing the future of food. And fortunately, we're in this very exciting place where everyone on the call and in the audience, get to choose and decide what that looks like.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Thank you for this great overview. And I would like to invite everyone to turn their camera and microphone on so we can dive into a rather short panel discussion. But I would like to, with all your different perspectives and fascinating work around AI and more when it comes to personalization, I would like to kind of open this panel discussion about really focusing on what does actually personalization mean for people who are listening. What does personalization mean to what kind of level of personalization can we actually expect in the next few years? So who would like to start?
Sure, I will. Well, yeah, thank you, Erica, and thank you, everybody. Just fascinating, and as a guy who just likes to cook, it kind of blows my mind to even just be on a panel like this and be a part of it. And kind of realize me after I finished speaking, probably the one part I left out of my presentation is what culinary actually does, which is make recipes, generate recipes from all of those buckets that we are talking about. So and it harkens back to with Chef Watson, the first construction using very, very different and not nearly as advanced data sets that we were working with 12 years ago, with Chef Watson. But what is personalization? What kind of personalization can we expect in the coming years? I mean, I don't know if any of us even truly know that, because the potential is so great. We hear all these, everyone on this panel talking about, the incredible research that's being done and the data that's being collected that can, soon be collated across expertise. From recipe writing, and from a chef's perspective to nutrition, genomic, every bit of it. So I think we're going to see really incredible rapid progression, that I kind of, to my mind, and we as humans are going to be struggling to keep up, because I think soon we're going to be at a point where your wearable is going to say, all right, boom, level of activity for today based on sleep and everything, this is what you need to have for dinner tonight. And we can be, as it's going to be the struggle for us to keep up with what AI is able to provide us, as far as how we should be fueling ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. But I also really like what you mentioned, Johnny, like how are we actually designing the future of food, and what is actually the importance of, as you are doing, Julia, like looking into the dark nutrition of the nutrition dark matter, sorry. What is,
So
yeah,
please
please.
go ahead.
No, no,
Sorry, again, we have all, signal issues all right now during the session. But anyway, we work with what we have.
exactly. Back and forth. What is the most important when it comes to personalization with the work that you're doing and looking into all these detailed level of food?
So of course, I mean, the nutrition dark matter is the mapping of nutrition dark matter will allow us to really empower what I like to call precision medicine and not personalized medicine, because I really think that, of course, we want to get to that level in which not only we understand how nutrition can shape our health, but when a person comes with a specific trajectory of health issues, diseases, social determinants of health, we are able to intervene with precision on this person. Okay, so this is where this mapping of the nutritional dark matter will bring us. Okay, it's not something we have right now. We have right now just for, let's say, certain classes of chemical compounds, certain foods for which we know more. As a data scientist, while of course the goal is to go on mapping the nutritional dark matter, I also always ask myself, for whom are we doing this? Okay, so is this to improve health for people that can pay a subscription of hundreds of dollars per year or more, or is this really to make people healthier? So what does it take to make people globally healthier? So then we go to the distinction between basically what is personalization and at which level we need it in order to make everyone healthier, and precision. So the precision nutrition, at least this is like I like to somehow describe it, right, is that somehow you want to have enough data to have some sort of subtyping and grouping of the population, and understand the type of intervention that you can make on these groups according to, again, the omics, for which we have a lot of information, but just for few people, and many other, let's say, data points that come from, for example, the literature, or let's say patterns of consumption all around the world. FAO, for example, is doing a great job in providing information about all countries in the world. And so once we do this subtyping, we can also understand that sometimes you need extreme personalized solution. Sometimes what works is not necessarily a very personalized solution, but is actually something that can involve the whole population. This is why I've been pushing to do more and more data science for public health and the food environments. The final solution that I think we would like to see in the next years is a combination between strong, deep work on the public health side, because even the richest person on earth will depend on a system bringing healthy food to them, okay? So at the same time, they're not cultivating their food. They're not independent on all the different aspects of the food systems, okay? So we have to fix that first order problem in order to make everyone more or less at a comparable level. And then personalization, some of the keywords that my colleagues mentioned, like personalization with access, personalization to scale up expertise, to make expertise more reachable to everyone, okay? It is something that will help us through nudges according to the type of devices we have access to. Not everyone will have a smartphone. Not everyone will have or a smartwatch. Hopefully, yes, but this is currently not the case.
Yeah. And Raquel, like, what would be your, as also a nutritionist and kind of just hearing these different research going on and also from an industry perspective, and as well to educating new chefs and gastronomy, like what would be your take?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that have been discussed that we are seeing, no, and that I relate with personally a lot. So I think to Julia's point, right, it's about precision nutrition, right? Like really giving to the people what they need in the right way. I think we are working on projects, and this links me with everything that James have been talking about, no? Our nature in GOE and in Basque Culinary Center along all these years is all about making delicious food. It's about mixing this part of precision nutrition, working on projects like personalized meals and personalized menus and recipes for ovarian cancer. These things are coming together for us now because we believe in the power of the multidisciplinarity. So it's that part of I give you what you need, but I give you something that you are going to enjoy when you eat it. It's easy to make at home, but you are going to enjoy it as well. If we don't crack that, if it's not delicious, it's not going to happen. Can be as personalized as you want, but people is not going to eat it. We are not doing anything. So that's one bit that for us is key. AI is helping because sometimes you can come up with new meals, new dishes, new menus that are far-fetched and it's helping from a creative standpoint, then you need to bring it back to what's real. So that's one key element for us. I think the other element, Johnny mentioned it very well, AI or digitalization or personalization also have some roots. So we have been selecting what we, depending on how we feel, how we wake up in the morning, if I feel good or bad, if I have a stomach ache. So that part of keeping the roots in and keeping the essence of everything we do is for us key. And last but not least, I would say we have a duty to teach the talent of the future how to look at AI working for a sustainable, delicious future. So don't be afraid of it, just embrace it. Teach also the AI to use it in a smart way, right? So be human, bring your human being to what is getting out of that AI and keep building that delicious future because yeah, I think AI is another way to collaborate as well. So that's a little bit our vision as well on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I hear more and more that AI is kind of more creative collaborator
Definitely.
instead of actually being the only tool. So how do we actually collaborate, Martin? Maybe you as a collaborator with AI, how do you see that collaboration?
Well, I mean, certainly in the EU, we can provide the programs and we can provide the fora. And we do that, or as I said, we actually develop the policies and then the algorithms, and then various parts we help pay for the deployment and the application, of course. But I just wanted to pick up in relation to that some points I think Johnny made, but also most recently Julia, and it's about this kind of the access to it. And you're talking about the waste of food, the problems there are in the distribution of food getting to the right people in the right amount, the right the right recipes, the right matter, dark or light matter of food. But I think there's this issue of the kind of the democratization of it, if you like, that it shouldn't be. There should be kind of a base level that's accessible. I mean, we try to do this as far as possible in what we develop in the commission, but it shouldn't be available only to the people who have the most expensive, latest Apple Watch or whatever device, So it shouldn't, these great advances that we can develop and then later disseminate and share, they should be more accessible. I don't know how we would do that costing wise, but open source is of course one solution. But it shouldn't be, perhaps what I'm trying to say, perhaps idealistically so dependent on just the ownership and access to the very expensive latest flashy devices. Mm-hmm. And that would take some policy making as well, and then also I guess some collaboration with industry, with the wearable manufacturers or whoever is actually producing the items that we need to properly ingest and digest and egest the data and develop it so that people can have these personalized solutions. So it's just this point about this democratization, that access to for many, and not just the rich man or the rich countries that are the only and exclusive beneficiaries. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think it's super important and so relevant, and also what you mentioned, Johnny, like how can we also make sure that the data sets themselves are not biased, right? Like how do we make sure that it's representing not only the small little parts that we have a lot of data on, but how do we actually make sure that we have larger data set? So maybe you want to jump on that, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of examples that don't involve AI, but do involve technology of biases in data sets. A couple of the sort of most well-cited examples are, if you translate like the word doctor from English language where it's not gendered into a language where you have to associate with a masculine or feminine, versus if you translate the word nurse. Often Google Translate and other translation engines will translate doctor to masculine and the context of a nurse to feminine. And similarly, there are biases in facial recognition technology that biases against different skin colors essentially and people from different backgrounds. So we already wrestle with these issues in technology. The issue is the problem could become much worse with AI, because AI can be distributed so quickly and so widely, and also because, as I'm sure we'll find now when we chat to ChatGPT, it feels like very human, and it also feels like it knows the answers, and so we have to interrogate what is behind this answer it's giving me. But I suppose, and I guess the other thing would be, and it connects to what Martin just said, and what everyone's really said, is we live in a world where it's tipped, the balance is tipped towards the rich and the developed and the technologically sort of endowed, and lots of the world's food is not produced by those people. It's produced by smallholder farmers in the south, about a third of the world's food, and we have to have those people around the table. We have to incorporate them in our conversations. And ditto, like I said, these non-human agents, pollinators, these huge microbial communities that actually like support the soil, and without which we won't be able to grow food. And if we can't grow food, then we can't make anything delicious. So we'll all be stuffed. So yeah, it's just thinking beyond that kind of the kind of rich and the wealthy and the developed, and being cautious and careful and holistic.
Definitely. I think it also, I think your work is so fascinating with not only humans, right, but a lot of microbes and so on, and how we also think about more different species. And when it comes to food, right, it's even broader spectrum. But we're running a little bit out of time, so I would also love to hear maybe shortly from each and every one of you, what would be the kind of your biggest vision when it comes to AI and food within the next years, but also the biggest dangers and the biggest learning that we should really try to take from this discussion to make sure that we are designing the future of food in the best possible way. Who would, Raquel?
Shall I kick it off? For me, two things. I think first of all, if it's not delicious, it's not good. And secondly, if it's not sustainably scalable, we are not doing anything. That would be for me.
Amazing.
James? Yeah, I think, you know, for me, and there's kind of two pieces that are so important in all of this, and we've talked around some of them, and some of them we've hit, you know, right on the head. But you know, the talk about collaboration, that you know, it's so important that as these AI tools develop and the ability of what we have to do with them advances very quickly, that we're also educating throughout the process and teaching people how to, you know, use them properly, that it's not, you know, we're not replacing just search function to answer questions, but, you know, to truly understand how to collaborate and ask questions and improve our knowledge and our experience and our ability by, you know, supplementing expertise, not just taking it blindly. And so collaboration and trust. We've all sort of talked around that, but I don't think anyone's, you know, said it directly. As we start to integrate all of these very, you know, important data sets, there's a level of transparency that's needed. We need to, you know, understand where this knowledge is coming from, how it's being applied, and why it actually fits, and not just a black box spitting out answers and, you know, telling, you know, just saying, yes, you know, cook this tonight. Because this is just what you should, you know, what you should eat. You know, and this is why, you know, GPTs, you know, have been so great for driving adoption and getting people comfortable and you know, introducing AI to the masses. But they also have the potential to be a big problem, you know, as well, because you know, without specialized SLMs, you know, that integrate all of this data so specifically, you know, we're never going to reach that point of expertise and trust that we need in these tools to really deliver all these solutions that we've all been talking about today.
Beautifully said. Julia, would you like to?
Yes, absolutely. So I second basically everything that my colleagues have just, you know, just brought up. But I would go back to, right, you know, trying to solve first order problems that for me are strongly connected to the use of data science and AI for public health, on which we can build on, you know. And I would say to really push to make sure that data availability and data transparency are the new business value for the next years to come. Because in this way, people can, if, you know, at the same time, education, as it was mentioned. So we want to have new generations more educated about accessing data, understanding data, but at the same time, having data available for public health, basically intervention. And so I think that, especially with Gen Z and the new generation, there are digitally native, the ability to actually share data in a transparent way to inform our AI models and to make them better will be a very important synergy between the private sector and basically policy.
So talking about policy, Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I thought all the comments were great there. I mean, obviously the previous comments, but these concluding comments. And for me, I think the most important word is access. So I think it's access to the LLMs or the SLMs. We build small language models. So they're not just sitting in these banks or the repositories that, again, only the, you know, certain big conglomerate companies have access to. I think access to the underpinning technology, whether that's the devices or whether it's the actual solutions. And then I think also access in terms of people, because, you know, education is always an element of this, and access, of course, according to people's abilities, education, but also generation as well. I mean, it can't just be that the generation of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds are the only ones who are really using this stuff. And then when people are over a certain age and they understand very little about technology, that they're somehow excluded for something that is, I think, what everyone's touched upon is health. And when you're in a more senior age bracket and your diet is becoming perhaps even more critical, that they aren't excluded from access to the solutions that these technologies built on great data sets as wide as possible. I mean, to remove the biases, but they shouldn't be excluded. So my overall comment is the word access.
Very nice. Yeah, Johnny, please.
Well, yeah, I guess I totally agree with what everyone else has said. So I'll try and pick a different one, which is, it's important that we solve the problems that need solving. It's great if someone develops a system that predicts what I want to order and delivers it to my house, and my fridge tells me what I should cook, but that doesn't really need solving. Getting food to people that don't have enough food, that's a problem that needs solving. But the financial incentives are normally there for the first one, because I might pay £20 a month for that service, whereas they might not be there to solve those second set of questions. So making sure that there are funds and motivation through policy, private sector, public sector, coming together to address and use AI to solve the problems that really matter, I would say is the priority and what I'd like to see in the next 3 to 5 years.
No, I think you all kind of wrapped it beautifully in what we really need to consider, and we really seen how personalization is not just an idea, but it's already taking shape with the different works that you all have presented here today, with Julia showing the hidden chemistry of food and the importance of it to actually understand how food is impacting our health. And James, how AI can really spark the creativity in the kitchen, and the importance also of the policy with you, Martin, how policy, especially to actually make it AI accessible for each and every one, right? That it just doesn't belong to a few corporations, but also the role of education and the ecosystem and the collaborational aspects. And I think, Johnny, you're really bringing also this kind of how we can use AI as a tool and as a creative collaborator. And I think the message is really clear in how AI is not longer about if, but it's about how. And how do we design this future of food and make sure that it's guided by ethics and humanity, and where AI is not just about data, but it's really about how we would like to design our future plates, right? And how do we care for our health, but how do we also nourish the planets that we all share? And I think you said it so beautifully, Raquel. How can we make sure that we actually collaborate for a more deliciousness future? I think that is the guiding word that we are taking with us today. And I would like to thank each and every one of you for your great presentations, your inspiring work, and I really looking forward to see the continuation and then spark and designing, co-creating, right, the future of food for the next generation to come. So I would like to thank you so much all, and thank you for everyone who is listening in. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And with that, I would like to close this session. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for participating in today's AI for Good session. We hope you've learnt something new, innovative, and engaging in today's event. We now encourage you to continue the conversation on the live video wall in the neural network. Here you can ask questions, like and comment, share links, complete the poll, connect with interesting profiles, or speak one-on-one using the chat and video function. We invite you to explore the lobby, try the smart matching quiz, visit the virtual exhibits, poster boards, the e-shop, and build your personalized AI for Good program. Let's shape the future of AI for good.